Fun fact, I started writing the scripts for this video 2 hours after the Loki Season 1 ended. Yeah, I started at like 5 in the morning on a Wednesday. What the fuck do you want from me? Anyways, this video will contain spoilers for everything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe up until Loki Season 1. Meaning, yeah, Loki, Black Widow, and Falcon and Winter Soldier spoilers are ahead. If you haven't seen any of them, you probably should watch something else. Or don't, and complain in the comments that I spoiled Loki for you. Side note, this video will also contain potential spoilers for Spider-Man No Way Home. Like, nothing like, plot detail wise, but like the things, like the big leaks that everyone on the internet knows. The MCU, despite what art house critics may tell you, is a pretty good franchise of films and shows. Or at least I think so. Can they be a bit predictable? Sometimes. Are they the same movie? No, that's probably the worst argument against the MCU. Yeah, the good guy wins. Like, okay, motherfuckers really gonna pretend Spider-Man Far From Home, Ant-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and Captain America Civil War are the same movie. Anyways, without further ado, here's the Marvel Cinematic Universe Iceberg. It's well known that the Stan Lee cameos that were in every single MCU film up until Endgame, and even shows like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, Runaways, Agent Carter, were actually the same character. This was confirmed in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, in which it was revealed that this character was a Watcher informant. Originally, both Hank and Hope appeared in Civil War, in a brief scene in which Falcon recruits Scott to Team Cap. However, this seems replaced by Spider-Man being recruited for Team Iron Man, though truthfully I don't know why they couldn't have had both of these scenes. In an interview with the Huffington Post, Tom Holland confirmed that the kid Iron Man saves from a hammer drone in Iron Man 2 is in fact Peter Parker. In fact, this retcon was actually accepted by Kevin Feige only 20 minutes before the interview actually happened. Before then, it was just a fan theory, but it's one of the few fan theories that got confirmed to be true. Marvel Studios Legends is a series on Disney Plus that serves as brief recaps of the history of certain MCU characters. They're released usually right before a show or movie about those characters is released. So far, there's been episodes about Loki, the Tesseract, Black Widow, Falcon, Bucky, Zemo, Scarlet Witch, etc. At first, I was like, this is a dumb show, like, why would anyone watch this? But then I realized something. There's like 25 plus movies in the MCU right now, and with like the shows as well now, like, it only makes sense to catch people up. Like, holy crap! If you haven't seen, like, there's a lot to get through if you want to get to, like, where the MCU is at right now. There's a lot to get through. In 2019, there was a fight between Disney and Sony. It was a complicated situation that I keep getting conflicting information on when I research it. All you need to know is that both companies wanted money and Spider-Man. And for a brief period of time, Spider-Man was officially written out of the MCU. Just after Far From Home in theaters. So there'd be no conclusion to that cliffhanger. Thankfully, it was all resolved and Spider-Man is now back in the MCU. For the time being. Who knows at this point. Just like every other film ever made, the MCU has its share of deleted scenes. And there's a lot of them. In fact, way too many for me to cover here. So I'm just going to do a rapid fire of at least 2 from each MCU film, except the Spider-Man ones. Because I've already done those in the Spider-Man Iceberg. I'll leave a link to the full list of MCU deleted scenes so you can read about the rest of them. Because trust me, I'm going to miss a lot. So, starting off with Iron Man, Tony Stark uses an assault rifle to defend himself while in Afghanistan. Tony then tries to save Obadiah, but he refuses to be saved. We witness Hulk try to kill himself in first person. Leonard Samson and Bruce Banner play chess. Natalie Rushman uses an Iron Man gauntlet briefly. Whiplash holds Pepper hostage during the final act. Hank Pym gets a name drop in Thor. Thor makes breakfast for his friends. Bucky battles Nazis in Enzano, Italy, before being captured by HYDRA. HYDRA would even be shown killing Nazis, as it splits off from that faction. Captain America discovers Peggy Carter is alive, but decides not to contact her yet and goes to a diner. A scene in which 2 police officers use Chitauri guns to fend off aliens, but they fail miserably and die. A subplot involving Tony Stark encountering Harley Keener's bully, EJ, was cut. Maya Hansen gets a much more brutal death when she switches sides during her final moments, but then is burned alive. Loki fantasizes about being crowned King of Asgard. Thor battles a group of Asgardians, but he refuses to kill them. Maria Hill is ordered to travel to New York by Alexander Pierce after Nick Fury's quote-unquote funeral. Black Widow gets taunted by Pierce about her past. Budapest gets mentioned here. Gamora and Nebula fight each other and debate who's better at fighting. A different Stan Lee cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy, where Stan Lee is part of the Collector's Collection and flips off Groot. Quicksilver distributes stolen food, clothes, and medicine to the people of Sokovia during the final battle. Scarlet Witch would then tell him that, be careful, because you can still be shot despite his speed. Vision briefly fights the Avengers when he's awakened. Hank pretends to be feeble while Scott comes into his house to fix his cable in order to take down his security cameras. An after credits scene in Ant-Man was scrapped where Ant-Man would defeat a HYDRA operative and retrieve the Pym particles he stole. Hawkeye would assist in transporting Bucky to Berlin in Civil War and bond with him about their shared experiences of being brainwashed. A scene in which Black Widow interrogates Black Panther was also cut. A scene in which Doctor Strange's sister Donna was seen was cut from the film, along with a scene where Strange heals a dog's broken leg. Ego shows the Guardians of the Galaxy a statue of the Guardians saved the universe during the battle on Xandar. Quill is shown to be the real hero, while Rocket and Groot are just blobs, while Drax looks like a small little chimp thing, to which Drax asks the rest of the Guardians why they didn't tell him he looked like that. The scene in which Odin dies is originally going to take place in New York City, where we see him as a homeless man. This was even shown in the trailers, so it was cut pretty late. Grandmaster was mad at Topaz for not understanding the leave gesture. Everett Ross tries to dissuade T'Challa from revealing Wakanda's wealth and power, but he refuses, saying he won't be ruled by fear anymore. Now flashback, a young T'Challa and Nakia discovered T'Chaka mourning over the assassination of Najubu. A scene in which Hulk awakens during the Battle of Wakanda and busts out of the Hulkbuster armor. This scene even got a toy based directly on it. A scene in which Doctor Strange and Iron Man switch gear for a bit during the fight with Ebony Maw. A flashback to Hank and Janet as Ant-Man and the Wasp in order to capture Elias Starr. While leaving the Quantum Realm, Janet reveals there's countless civilizations living inside the Quantum Realm. Phil Coulson gets one more scene in Captain Marvel, which he discovers a member of S.H.I.E.L.D. named Keller was being replaced by a Skrull. The Star Force crew is some banter while on their way to murder some Skrulls. A scene in which Hulk, Iron Man, Nebula, and Ant-Man develop the time suit. Thanos and his army attack Black Widow and Hawkeye during their debate on who gets to kill themselves. Black Widow gets shot to the chest during the fight and jumps off, sacrificing herself. A scene showing the Black Widow's training in hand-to-hand combat was cut, but was seen in the trailers. And finally, a scene in which Taskmaster watches Black Widow's fight scenes from Iron Man 2 was cut. Tom Holland's been known to leak a lot of things by accident. Spider-Man 3's very existence, the poster for Infinity War, Hydra Man's appearance in Far From Home. While some of these are obviously just him screwing up, I'm willing to bet that a good chunk of them, if not most of these instances, are just a form of marketing. But nonetheless, it's become a meme in the MCU fandom. So in Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, Age of Ultron, Infinity War, and by extension Endgame, Thanos had a completely different color scheme in pretty much every one of his appearances. Why is that? Well, in Avengers he wasn't played by Josh Brolin, but instead a stand-in actor and was made for prosthetics instead of CGI, so he looks a bit more pinker. As for his bluer look in Guardians of the Galaxy Age of Ultron, I'm fairly sure it was just shadows or something. I don't know. I don't think he's meant to look blue, I think it's just kind of what happened. Phil Coulson, played by Clark Gregg, was an original character created for the MCU, who first appeared in Iron Man, and then reappeared in Iron Man 2, Thor, Avengers, and Captain Marvel. And even became the protagonist in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for its 7 seasons, because he was brought back to life after Avengers. Well, 6 of its 7 seasons, because in Season 6 they fought an evil black hole clone of him or something, after the original Phil Coulson died, named Sarge. Oh wait, no, actually 5 seasons, because in Season 7 that's just a life model decoy of the real Coulson, not the actual Coulson. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. gets complicated. I've never seen it. I'm just going off the wiki for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff, and it's kind of nuts. And I guarantee you I got some little thing about the clone Sarge wrong or something, I don't know. Point being is that it gets complicated. Anyways, Coulson's the first MCU-created character to appear in other media. For example, he's in 2 episodes of Ultimate Spider-Man, an episode of Iron Man Armored Adventures, and even in an episode of Marvel Disc Wars The Avengers. He's also jumped to the mainstream Marvel Comics timeline and is a playable character in Marvel Future Fight, Superhero Squad Online, and appears in Marvel Heroes. Sumk, aka Sony's Universe of Marvel Characters, or Spunk, Sony Pictures Universe of Marvel Characters, is a cinematic universe about Spider-Man characters without Spider-Man, at least for the time being. It began with Venom in 2018 and will continue with Venom with Carnage, Morbius, and Kraven the Hunter movies, along with a Silk TV show. Now, there's a lot of conversation about whether or not this universe is canon to the MCU. For example, there were reports that Tom Holland filmed a cameo in Venom, but Marvel Studios asked for Sony to remove it, but this has never been confirmed and completely and outright denied. Sony would then even claim that Venom and Spider-Man were already in the same universe, and would eventually face off, but then Marvel Studios denied these claims. But then in Morbius's trailers, we see Michael Keaton is appearing as, well, we don't know, but it's probably the Vulture. And there are posters in Morbius that show Spider-Man's on the run at the events of Far From Home. However, it's not the Tom Holland Spider-Man that appears in the posters. It's the Raimi suit from the Spider-Man PS4 game. So, I make it that as you will. I think it's safe to say that they're canon. Like, Sunk is one of the many multiverses in the MCU. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe they're both canon and they're not, like, they take place in the same universe. I don't know. It's complicated, alright? Avengers Campus is the name of 3 different theme parks located at Disney California Adventure, Walt Disney Studios Park in Florida, and Hong Kong Disneyland, or it's known as Stark Expo. It's based directly on the MCU and is been confirmed to take place in the Marvel theme park universe, because of course it does. This timeline is the same as the normal MCU up until Infinity War, as in this universe, Thanos never got the stones. So Infinity War, Endgame, and all of Phase 4 except for Black Widow never happened. They got attractions based on Guardians of the Galaxy, which I'll go into more detail later, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and have restaurants like the Pym Test Kitchen, or Shawarma Palace. Kinda tired of the shawarma joke, I get it, haha. Terrence Howard was the actor who originally played War Machine in Iron Man 1, before being replaced with Don Cheadle in the sequel. He walked away from the franchise after a pay dispute between him and Marvel Studios. And I mean, look, it sucks that there was a pay dispute, but at the same time, I'm happy we got Don Cheadle as Rhodey. I think he fits the character way better. Though now, this is probably the single most poorly aged thing in all of cinema.
Next time, baby.
For years, people thought Iron Man 4 would happen. And while technically we're getting Iron Man type shows with War Machine and Ironheart, a 4th Iron Man film hasn't been confirmed to be happening, or was ever in production to begin with. The only things ever said to hint at a 4th installment was in 2016 Roy Downey Jr. said that he was open to reprising the role in a 4th installment. Poor New Warriors. New Warriors was an MCU show in production that would have aired on Freeform alongside Cloak and Dagger. It would have starred the superhero group, well, New Warriors, which included Squirrel Girl, Mr. Immortal, Night Thrasher, Speedball, Microbe, and Debris. Side note, the Arbiter himself, Keith David, was actually in the pilot alongside the main cast, though he was part of the recurring cast instead. However, despite a pilot being completed, Freeform dropped the show from the 2018 lineup because they couldn't find a time slot for it, which led to the show being shopped elsewhere. But it was passed on by ABC, Hulu, and even Disney+. And so, in 2019, it was announced that it was officially cancelled. I hope they eventually release the pilots, but it's not likely since the only other scrapped MCU show with a filmed pilot never got theirs released. Speaking of which, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Most Wanted was a cancelled spin-off series to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that would have starred Mockingbird and Lance Hunter being hunted by bounty hunters, while also working with Dominic Fortune. It's unknown when the show would have taken place, though it can be assumed to take place right after Season 3 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Sadly for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans, the show, despite having a pilot filmed, wasn't picked up by ABC, and was officially cancelled in 2016. So back when Tom Holland leaked Spider-Man 3's existence, he also mentioned that a 4th film was in the works. But now with Tom Holland saying Spider-Man 3 is his last film in his contract with Marvel, it's possible we might not get this film because of yet another Disney-Sony legal battle. Here's hoping it happens and we get to see Kraven and Scorpion in it. Originally, Ant-Man was being written and directed by Edgar Wright, but he left the project due to creative differences, and his crew left the film almost immediately afterwards because, they're his friends. Though he still got story credit in the film. So what would have a completely Edgar Wright-controlled Ant-Man film look like? We don't know. But we have an idea. It's been reported that it would have been an Edgar Wright film first and a Marvel movie second. So if you've seen any of his works, then you'll know what that means. The film also went through a tonal shift once the film's script was reworked, but the general story, heist movie structure, and casting all came from Edgar Wright himself. We also know that Yellow Jacket was apparently not given much of a character in the Wright version, at least according to Corey Stoll, who claimed that his character was deepened by the rewrites. Also, the Falcon scene and the design of the Quantum Realm and its very inclusion in the film at all were all Peyton Reed's ideas, not Wright's, so they wouldn't have been in the film at all. Originally set for release on May 1st, 2020, Black Widow was postponed because of COVID-19. The film was then pushed to November 6th, 2020, before being pushed back again to May 7th, 2021, until finally it was pushed back one more time to July 9th, 2021. Because of this, We got no MCU content in 2020, besides the final season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hellstrom. Yup, Hellstrom, remember that? No, you don't. Nobody. Come on, who watched Hellstrom? Okay, so Marvel's usually pretty so-so about keeping leaks and stuff secret. But for No Way Home, both Marvel and Sony have just kind of sucked at it. Like, everyone knows Spider-Man 3 will be a Spider-Verse film about Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man showing up. I mean, hell, Jimmy Fox revealed it by showing a piece of fan art of it on Instagram, which probably would have just been met with, oh, that's weird, if he kept it up. But someone told him to remove it, which led to everyone online going, oh, he wasn't supposed to do that. After credit scenes, or post-credit scenes, or mid-credit scenes, whatever you want to call them, these are scenes either in the middle of the credits or at the end of them that are either a joke or a tease for another movie or show. Originally only being in the movies, since WandaVision, they've actually begun to appear in the Disney Plus shows as well. Some of these post-credit scenes are actually just scenes taken from other MCU films. Like Ant-Man's after-credit scene is just a scene from Civil War, while Captain Marvel's was originally meant to be an Endgame, but was removed and put into her own movie instead. Cosmo the Space Dog is a character from Marvel Comics that was brought into the MCU in Guardians of the Galaxy, as a little joke in the Collector's Museum, before being freed at the end. Since then, he's become a fan-favorite joke character, and has even had an end credits cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And was going to be an Infinity War, but was scrapped. Since we last saw him with the Collector, and, well, this is what happened to the Collector's Museum, and yeah, you know, it's probably for the best to be scrapped for that film, because there's a good chance he would have probably died. Scott Derrickson was originally going to direct Doctor Strange 2, but in January 2020, he left the project because of creative differences. Apparently, he wanted the story to go in a completely different direction than Marvel wanted to go, but no script was ever completed, so the final film won't be anything like his original idea. Except the horror elements, as apparently Sam Raimi wants to keep some of the horror stuff. Derrickson claimed he was sad when he left the film, but he didn't want to compromise a film that was different from what he wanted to make. The only thing we really know about this version of the film that it was more than likely going to have Nightmare as the main antagonist, as Scott Derrickson really wanted to use him. The MCU has its fair share of video games, but I'll talk about the console ones later. For now, discuss only the mobile games, that I don't think you can get anymore, at least from the App Store. It's probably an illegal version of getting them, but that will probably destroy your computer, so I would not advise that. There's an iPhone version of Iron Man 2 the game that I remember playing the demo of back in the day, Thor the Dark World the game, which looks better than the actual Thor console game released in 2011, Captain America the Winter Soldier the game, and Iron Man 3 the game, which I played a ton of back in 2013. These games are a mix between open world, hack and slash, and endless runners. Now, are these games canon? Absolutely not. I mean, there's a completely different Taskmaster and Diamondback that appeared in the Winter Soldier game. Iron Man 3 had Crimson Dynamo showing up, and Killian turning into MODOK. Though I guess because multiverse, I guess they're technically canon, but I'm going to ignore that fact and just say they're not canon. Edward Norton was the first person to play Hulk in the MCU, in The Incredible Hulk. Though he was let go from the MCU officially because Edward Norton was apparently hard to work with. However, that's not actually the case, or at least it was heavily exaggerated, as Edward Norton would later go on to say that wasn't the case. Apparently, there may have been some trouble on set, but it was extremely minor. The real reason was because Norton wanted to diversify his career, and didn't want to be associated with playing just one character for his entire career. Which, fair enough, that's an understandable reason. Miles Morales is actually canon to the MCU. He was even name-dropped in a deleted scene in Spider-Man Homecoming. He's mentioned by Eric Davis when Peter fails to interrogate him, so you might be thinking, oh, we're going to see him in Spider-Man 3, 4, or whatever, right? Well, no. You see, Kevin Feige has said they have no plans to use him in the foreseeable future. This is most likely due to Sony featuring Miles as the protagonist of their Spider-Verse film series. It's a shame, I'd love to see MCU Miles. Though, funny enough, Donald Glover, who plays Aaron Davis, actually voices Miles in Ultimate Spider-Man.
We'll be right back to Marvel's Avengers, Ultron Revolution on Disney XD.
Dad, why would Spider-Man be on a bus?
Because he couldn't get a cab?
No way, there's the Hulk.
Hey, where are you guys going?
They're going to McDonald's, where you can find 8 of the greatest superheroes. Because with every hamburger Happy Meal you buy for $1.99, your kids get a superhero action toy. Like the Invisible Woman or the web-whipping Spider-Man. One with each Marvel superhero's Happy Meal you buy.
Look, the Invisible Woman.
Huh. I didn't see her on the bus.
And now back to Marvel's Avengers Ultron Revolution on Disney XD.
So Isaac Perlmutter, aka a really bad person that I'll talk about a little bit more later, was the CEO of Marvel and really wanted an Inhumans movie. Pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed for it, as he wanted them to be the MCU's X-Men so that he could destroy Fox's X-Men film series. Eventually, Marvel caved and an Inhumans film was announced in 2014, along with the rest of Phase 3, minus both Spider-Man films and Ant-Man and the Wasp. However, Inhumans kept getting delayed and eventually was scrapped altogether in 2016, before Kevin Feige said later that year that Inhumans could return in Phase 4 as a film. Nothing is known about what the film would have been about, or even its cast, but we do know about its legacy. After Isaac Perlmutter was removed as the CEO of Marvel, he was still in charge of Marvel TV, so he took the Inhumans there, and created the Inhumans show. Probably the only universally hated canon MCU thing ever, really. It was cheaply produced, which is what Isaac Perlmutter wanted to do in the first place, and a complete dumpster fire, not just in terms of effects, but in writing too. To this day, Inhumans is Marvel's biggest flop, and honestly, out of all the shows Marvel's released, I think this is the only one that's in danger of being retconned. So like pretty much every single film ever made, the casting when the film's announced isn't set in stone, and the MCU is no different. There's been a ton of actors who are going to play these iconic characters, but never got the chance to. But because of how big the MCU is, I can't go over every single one of them, so here are the most notable ones in my opinion. Natalie Portman and Emily Blunt were originally going to be Black Widow. Karen Gillan was going to be Sharon Carter before finally becoming Nebula. Sebastian Stan, before becoming the Winter Soldier, was going to originally be Captain America. Chadwick Boseman, the legend himself, was going to originally be Drax. That's a really weird concept. Tom Cruise is going to be Iron Man, which most people I think know about nowadays. Daniel Craig was going to play Thor. Channing Tatum and Dane Cook were also in the running to play Captain America. Danny DeVito and Jim Carrey were also in talks to become Rocket Raccoon's voice. Both Ken Watanabe and Morgan Freeman were in talks to be the Ancient One. Joaquin Phoenix auditioned for Doctor Strange. Mel Gibson was in talks to be Odin. Glenn Howerton was in talks to be Star-Lord. And Olivia Wilde was going to be Gamora. Announced in 2019, Ghost Rider was going to be a spin-off to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. starring Robbie Reyes as Ghost Rider. Though it'd technically be a spin-off of the show, apparently it wouldn't reference any events from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Or at least there'd be very, 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 very minor references. So it was really just like a standalone series. The show was originally discussed in 2016 and apparently had the chance of becoming a Netflix series or a film, before finally becoming a Hulu series. However, on September 25th, 2019, the show was cancelled due to creative differences, which left its sister show, Hellstrom, the other horror-inspired MCU Hulu series, to die alone. Jim Hammond, aka the First Human Torch, is an android and one of Marvel's first characters, being introduced in 1939. And he's been canon to the MCU since 2011. At least maybe he is. You see, in Captain America the First Avenger, you can actually see him in the 1943 Stark Expo as a synthezoid in an oxygen-deprived glass tube going under the name The Synthetic Man. Well, he hasn't been mentioned since this Easter egg, like, at all, even in reference books. I hope it gets mentioned in the upcoming Fantastic Four film. I mean, who knows? Maybe the MCU Human Torch wouldn't even be Johnny Storm, but instead be John Hammond, who somehow is still alive. Actually, there's no way that would happen, because people get really mad, and I mean, understandably so. I mean, a proper adaptation of the Fantastic Four, and they don't include Johnny Storm, that would not go over well at all. Team Thor is a 3-part non-canon promotional mockumentary film series for Thor Ragnarok that was screened at the 2016 San Diego Comic-Con. It tells the story of Thor during the events of Captain America's Civil War, as he moves in with a man named Daryl in Australia, and deals with the knowledge that his friends basically left him out of their big movie, or their big fight. The first part was released online on August 28th, 2016. Part 2 is released with Doctor Strange's Blu-ray release on February 28th, 2017, and the third and final part was released on February 20th, 2018 with Thor Ragnarok's Blu-ray. The third part actually doesn't even have Thor in it, but instead has Grandmaster living with Daryl instead. They're really funny. I'll leave links to them in the description below. From 2008 to 2011, 5 MCU video games were released. Iron Man, which I played the demo of for countless hours back in 2009, before renting the game and realizing, wow, this is horrible. And I also played a demo of it at Six Flags in 2008. I don't know why I remember that. I could remember algebra, or any kind of math, or science, or something, but no, I remember Six Flags Iron Man demo. Holy shit, that shouldn't annoy me as much as it does. The Incredible Hulk is a video game, which includes multiple Hulkbuster drones for whatever reason. Also, if you had Iron Man save data on your console, you could actually play as the Hulkbuster in-game. Iron Man 2, the video game, which was, not good. Thor, God of Thunder, which somehow got most of the film's cast to reprise their roles. And Captain America Super Soldier, which is the only one I'm even remotely interested in playing because it's literally just a Batman Arkham clone. None of these games were well received, and are really only ever mocked and discussed online. However, there's actually been more MCU video games released since Super Soldier that aren't mobile games, like Spider-Man Homecoming Virtual Reality Experience, and Spider-Man Far From Home Virtual Reality Experience, which were released in 2017 and 2018, and as the name suggests, are VR games. First airing on August 1st, 2015, and ending on June 9th, 2019, Guardians of the Galaxy was a cartoon series that continued the adventures of the Guardians after the events of the first film. Or at least, that's what people thought it was going to be. You see, for whatever reason, it was reported that this show would be like MTV's Spider-Man cartoon, where the first film is canon, but it's not canon to anything else. However, this was quickly debunked by James Gunn, who flat out said, "Is that what somebody said? Because that's not true. There's no way. It's totally separate from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and whoever said that, it pisses me off." Turns out the person who started this rumor was Marvel's Vice President of Animation, Stephen Wacker, who said that the show's plot would pick up where the movie left off. I have no idea why you say that, because the show is very clearly not canon. Marvel one-shots are a series of short films that range from just a few minutes long to 15 minutes in length. They were attached to Blu-ray releases and served as little side stories or teases for potential projects. The three most notable one-shots are Agent Carter, which is basically a pilot episode of the series Agent Carter, All Hail the King, which is about Trevor being captured by the real Mandarin and was pretty much made as a direct response to the Trevor twist backlash by Iron Man 3. You should probably watch this one before seeing Shang-Chi. I guarantee you'll somehow tie into it. And finally, Peter's To-Do List, the most recent one-shot, that while technically not called a one-shot, it fits the description perfectly. This one is notable for being shown in Far From Home's trailers because this entire short was actually going to be in the film itself, but all the scenes were scrapped. But thankfully the short was made using the footage, so it's canon. Other one-shots include The Consultant, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to Thor's Hammer, and Item 47. There's been a ton of canceled one-shots that have been scrapped because they didn't have time to make them, which is why they just completely stopped making one-shots to begin with. These include shorts about Loki, Young Nick Fury, Black Panther, Miss Marvel, Crossbones, Jessica Jones, Damage Control, Howard the Duck, Cosmo the Space Dog, Luis, and Sin. There's also one more, but I'll save that for its own spot in the iceberg, because I think it deserves it. I think everyone and their mother loved Daredevil. It was the perfect adaptation of the character, it was extremely successful, and got critical acclaim. So when the show was cancelled, it was a shock to literally everyone, including the creators of the show themselves, who were literally in discussion of what Season 4 would be when they got the news. Hell, they even pitched ideas for Season 4 back in November 2018 to Marvel. Charlie Cox himself said that he was saddened about the cancellation, that he felt there was a lot more story to tell. Amy Rutberg said the show's fourth season was expected to begin filming in February 2019, and the cast and crew thought the show would last at least 5 seasons, with a new antagonist being featured in the 4th season before a final showdown between Daredevil and Kingpin in the 5th and final season. Hopefully Hulu or Disney Plus picks up Daredevil again, because we need to see the ending to this amazing show. Originally, Marvel had announced Captain America Civil War as Captain America Serpent Society, as a joke during the Phase 3 announcement, because most of the other announcements would pale in comparison to this. So they kept it as a twist to the end of the presentation, with Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., and Chadwick Boseman appearing on stage to announce it. In 2016, a commercial featuring Ant-Man, voiced by Paul Rudd, and Hulk fighting each other and then bonding over a Coke mini can aired during Super Bowl 50. The commercial was directed by the Russo brothers and was even nominated for Outstanding Visual Effects in a Commercial at the 15th Visual Effects Society Awards, though it didn't win. When WandaVision was airing, everyone thought Mephisto would be revealed to be the big bad of the show, with fan theories going wild, though some of these theories actually had genuine backing to them, and there were a plethora of fake leaks going around. Though by the end of the show's run, we never got Mephisto, to the disappointment of many. Since then, it's become kind of a running joke in the Marvel fanbase to declare a character's identity as Mephisto before they're officially revealed. For example, many did this during Loki Season 1, before Kang was revealed. and some even did it when Black Widow was being marketed, suggesting that maybe Taskmaster was actually Mephisto all along. So every single Marvel movie, let's be real here, every single superhero movie is filled to the brim with Easter eggs, and the Guardians films are no different. But there's one Easter egg that nobody's found yet. When Guardians 1 was released on DVD, James could confirm that there is one Easter egg that nobody's found yet. And well, 7 years later, and it still hasn't been found. Or maybe it has. In 2020, the YouTube channel New Rockstars may have found the Easter egg, as James Gunn flat out confirmed on Twitter that they found a big piece of it. So, what is this big piece? Well, many believe the Easter egg surrounds Meredith Quill's true identity. In fact, Eric Voss from New Rockstars think that the Easter egg is the fact that Meredith Quill actually created the Infinity Stones in She's Eternity. It's a complicated Easter egg that uses the film's soundtrack and other stuff like that, and I don't feel confident enough to explain it proper because I'm an idiot. So here's a screenshot from a Looper article. Keep in mind, though, this hasn't been confirmed yet, so for all we know, the Easter egg could still be out there. Originally, Hawkeye was going to appear as a minor antagonist in Captain America: Winter Soldier, where he'd be tasked by S.H.I.E.L.D. to track down and capture Captain America. However, Cap would eventually talk him down after a fight, only for Hawkeye to just kind of fuck off from the rest of the film, not even showing up during the final battle. I guess Hawkeye just had some other things to do. The Incredible Hulk was originally a sequel to Ang Lee's 2003 Hulk film, which is why the film begins in Brazil, since, Hulk 2003 ends in Brazil. The film, however, was rewritten in 2007, cutting all ties to Hulk 2003 besides the opening setting. That's probably a good thing. In 2015, ABC ordered a pilot for a half-hour single-camera show set in the MCU based on Damage Control, the construction company in the MCU that deals with the aftermath of certain events. The description of the show reads, Marvel's Damage Control centers on the overworked and underpaid cleanup crew of the Marvel Universe. Their specialty is dealing with the aftermath of the unique fallout from superhero conflicts, like returning lost ray guns to their rightful owners, rescheduling a wedding venue after it has been vaporized in a battle, or even tracking down a missing prize African parrot that's been turned to stone or goo. Sometimes the most important heroes are the ones behind the scenes. The show was meant to air in 2016, but it's 2021, and we have yet to see anything from it. And since Marvel TV got shut down, yeah, it's cancelled. It's a shame, honestly. I wouldn't mind seeing a canon comedy series that deals with the aftermath of, say, the Battle of New York, or the airport battle, or the Battle of Sokovia, or the Battle of London, or hell, even Ego's expansion in Missouri. Which, side note, I found this out like 2 weeks ago, but that's Quill's grandfather from the opening of Guardians 1. He's in Guardians 2. I'm an idiot. I just didn't notice. I'm an idiot, I guess. In 2018, Fortnite added Marvel stuff to the game in promotion for Infinity War. It even included a Thanos mode in which you could play as the Mad Titan himself. Fortnite would then even appear in Endgame, which, I guess in universe, Epic Games was like, let's just add the dude who slaughtered half of all life in existence into the game. That can be pretty funny, right? I wonder while playing Fortnite, Thor had PTSD when he saw Thanos do a Fortnite dance. Anyways, since then, there's been a ton of Marvel skins added to the game, like Iron Man, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, Black Widow, Groot, and even non-MCU Marvel characters like Wolverine, Storm, Doctor Doom, and the comic version of Daredevil. Nando V Movies is a YouTube channel that's all about one small change to a movie or show. He's one of my favorite channels. And yeah, he covers more than just the MCU, like the DCU, for example, or even sometimes Star Wars. But his primary focus seems to be the MCU, since it has the most content being pumped out. You could say he's a bit of a nitpicker, not unlike his podcast, mostly nitpicking, but his ideas are usually pretty great. I really enjoy him. Here's some of my favorite videos from him. Go check him out. As if he needs the support from a guy that has, like, not even a percentage of his subscribers, but still, check him out. Being made by THQ, the Avengers the movie was a tie-in video game for the first Avengers film, though it'd be incredibly different from the film. In fact, it wouldn't even be recognizable as a video game adaptation of the movie. It'd deal with the Skrulls attacking New York City, the Skrull Queen disguising herself as Spider-Woman, Skrulls stealing the abilities of Wolverine, the Fantastic Four, and Cyclops, while Vision and Ultron serve as little minor antagonists for you to fight. Ultron, a very minor villain. It would have been a first-person shooter-like game with Captain America, Iron Man, Hulk, and Thor all being playable exclusively in first-person, along with Black Widow, Hawkeye, Captain Marvel, and War Machine being unlockable characters. It would have also had a huge focus on co-op play, with a Gears of War style revival system. Sadly, the game was cancelled as THQ collapsed in 2011, and Marvel refused to fund the project themselves, despite being initially impressed by it. For a lot, and I mean a lot more details on the subject, check out Unseen64's video on the subject. So the Ancient One's race in the MCU has been described as whitewashing. It's a complicated subject that several people involved in the MCU have given their thoughts on. Screenwriter C. Robert Cargill explains the character is considered a racial stereotype originating from Tibet in the comics. And since China would probably get mad at it, they changed it up. He said word for word this: "So if you acknowledge that Tibet as a place and that he's Tibetan, you risk alienating 1 billion people who think that's bullshit and risk the Chinese government going, hey, you know one of the biggest film-watching countries in the world? We're not gonna show your movie because you decided to get political." If we decide to go the other way and cater to China in particular and have him be in Tibet, if you think it's a good idea to cast a Chinese actress as a Tibetan character, you are out of your damn fool mind with no idea what the fuck you're talking about. I personally understand the Tibetan thing, but Marvel has catered to the Chinese before. Jesus fucking Christ, guys. Kevin Feige would even state that the character's race and gender were changed to avoid stereotyping. Though, recently he's backtracked on this, and said he regrets not casting an Asian actor, saying that they still could have done the old Asian wise man without being disrespectful. Meanwhile, Louis Tan, who played Zhao Cheng in Iron Fist, flat out said he is not a very big fan of the change in the slightest. But at the same time, Benedict Wong from, Doctor Strange, actually said he quite likes the change. So, everyone's got their own opinion on it. In the third episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, while undercover in Mandrapore, Zemo starts dancing in a club. This was almost immediately memed online, and eventually led to Marvel releasing even more footage of Zemo dancing. Though Zemo dancing's pretty funny, he's not even close to the king himself, Justin Hammer's dance. Sometimes the MCU just has the absolute worst luck when it comes to leaks, and a decent part of the leaks come from LEGO sets. Now sure, some LEGO sets don't accurately portray scenes, like when the fuck did this happen in Iron Man 3, but some do. For example, Giant Man Civil War was leaked via LEGO set. In fact, that's how I got Giant Man spoiled for Civil War. Made me very angry. And there's also been LEGO sets leaked for No Way Home and Shang-Chi. But this video will get taken down if I post them here, so, do whatever you want with that info. They're out there. Now, I've wanted a War Machine film for a long time, so you can safely guess I was extremely hyped when I heard about Arbor Wars. But I remember eons ago that there was a War Machine film in development, and after years and years of hearing nothing about it, I thought it was fake. Turns out there were actually talks about a War Machine solo film. It never ended up happening, but we know the film's plot may have involved War Machine going rogue, taking a mission that he believes he's morally responsible for. He may have been dishonorably discharged from the military in the film, but he'd still the suit, and now is fugitive. We also know that it was going to be a lot darker than the Iron Man trilogy. But like I said, it was scrapped, and supposedly was never seriously considered. For more information about it, check out Cut Short's video on the subject. So Garbage Human Being Isaac Perlmutter was the CEO of Marvel for a while, and was extremely racist and sexist. No joke, he refused to let Black Widow, Captain Marvel, and Black Panther films happen because he believed movies starring women and black people would make less than ones with white people. Yeah, about that, buddy. He also said to replace Terrence Howard with Don Cheadle because, and I quote, all black people look alike. Yeah, he's a pretty awful human being. He also wanted to get rid of all Black Widow merchandise because apparently he doesn't think boys want Black Widow toys. Or that girls don't buy Avengers toys. He's a fucking idiot. He's just an all-around scummy person. Plans for The Incredible Hulk 2 were discussed after the film was released. However, they never went anywhere, with the main reasons being 1, Edward Norton leaving the MCU, and 2, Universal owning partial rights to the Hulk solo films. Some ideas for the film's sequel included having the leader as the main antagonist, which is why he was set up at the end of the first film. Sadly, for Hulk fans, it doesn't seem like Marvel wants to do another solo Hulk film anytime soon, despite James Gunn saying he'd like to do a film about Hulk and Red Hulk. As you can probably tell from the original logo, Thor Ragnarok was going to be a lot different than the colorful, fun ride it is now. We don't know too much about the film's original tone, but we can speculate that it was going to be a lot darker because of those Age of Ultron vision scenes. Also, we know that original ideas for Ragnarok included having Beta Ray Bill in the film and Boulder in the film. And it was reported that original ideas included Thor and Hulk going on a road trip of sorts across the galaxy. In Thor, you can actually see the Infinity Gauntlet in Odin's treasure room. Well, originally it was supposed to be the real Infinity Gauntlet, but it was retconned to be a fake one once Thanos showed up. You see, during Phase 1, they didn't know if the cinematic universe would take off, so they just kept this in as an Easter egg in case it didn't. This fake gauntlet would even return in Ragnarok, where Hela flat out says it's a fake. Loki Episode 5, Journey into Mystery, features a ton of Easter eggs in the void. From a giant Yellow Jacket helmet, the Thanos copter, Kid Loki drinking Ecto Cooler, Polybius, an urban legend about a CIA MK Ultra video game machine, Frog Thor, aka Throg, who is without question going to suffocate to death, Quang Tower, which is Avengers Tower owned by a man named Quang, who is a variant of Kang in the comics. The Sphinx, which is a reference to how Kang was also an Egyptian pharaoh at one point named Ramatut. One of the HYDRA helicarriers from Winter Soldier. A Ronin ship from Guardians of the Galaxy. A statue of the Living Tribunal, which I'll talk about a little later. And the USS Eldridge, which is from a real-world conspiracy theory called the Philadelphia Experiment, about the government trying to turn a ship invisible. This is the second time I've mentioned the Philadelphia Experiment on my channel. That's not a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. Harley Keener was the kid from Iron Man 3 that Tony hangs out with for a bit. And for a long-ass time, people thought he was to come back as Iron Lad or something. And maybe he will. I mean, they randomly brought him back in Endgame to the confusion of literally everyone. Plus, Ty Simpkins signed on for 3 films, so we're still waiting on one more appearance. And only 1 month ago, Harley Keener made his comic debut in Web of Spider-Man issue 1. So, who knows? Maybe this is teasing his eventual stardom in the MCU. Ever since Thunderbolt Ross returned in Captain America Civil War, there's been countless rumors of a Thunderbolts movie or show. And to be honest, there is a lot backing these rumors. I mean, originally there was going to be an end credits scene in Civil War showing Ross turning into Red Hulk, but this was scrapped. That line in Black Widow where Natasha points out how sickly Ross looks is obviously set up for Red Hulk. The fact that Ross is in charge of the raft, which currently houses Zemo, Trish Walker, and Diamondback. Abomination being heavily tied to Ross. And now with Valentina recruiting US agent and Yelena into a mysterious organization, they could be setting up Thunderbolts. Or Dark Avengers. Originally, WandaVision's ending was going to have Doctor Strange appear to help my wife Scarlet Witch stop Agatha. It'd be revealed that the commercial breaks in the show would be his attempt at reaching Wanda, trying to break her out of the spell she's in. And he'd even briefly appear in the 7th episode in a commercial. But his role was scrapped in favor of focusing the show on just Wanda and Vision. There's this common complaint that every villain in the MCU is somehow related to either Tony Stark himself or Stark Industries. But I don't think that's true. Like, come on, I think we can excuse the villains of the Iron Man trilogy, since, you know, they're Iron Man villains. But other than that, who else is there? Ultron, Mysterio, Vulture, and, oh, I guess both Shockers by extension. And I guess Zemo, but that's mostly an Avengers thing, not a Tony Stark thing. But what about the other villains, like Thanos, Abomination, Loki, Ronin, Yongrog, Ghost, Malekith, Red Skull, Crossbones, Kekilius, Killmonger, Hela, the Winter Soldier, Zola, Yellowjacket, Claw, Ego, Taserface, Curse, Sonny Birch, Alexander Pierce. You get my point, they're not all related to Tony Stark. The amount of villains that aren't related to Tony Stark heavily outweigh the ones that are. While he appeared in both Iron Man 2 the game and Iron Man 3 the game, both are obviously not canon. Crimson Dynamo was actually name-dropped in Black Widow, maybe hinting at him being the villain of Armor Wars. I mean, the whole point of that show is that people are using Tony's tech, so who knows? Or maybe it was just a joke that references the character. I hope that's not the case, but probably is. In Loki Episode 5, the king himself, Alligator Loki, gets questioned by Mobius, who thinks he's not a Loki at all, and just an alligator. Well, obviously just a joke in the show, some fans have actually begun to theorize that this is actually the case. They are wrong. Side note, Alligator Loki's based off of Wally the emotional support alligator, which yes, he does exist, and he's fucking awesome. I would die for Wally. Wally, keep being a king, wherever you are. So something nobody ever talks about is how technically Star-Lord and Mantis are half-siblings. Or at least that's how it was originally intended to be. You see, there was a scene cut from Guardians 2 that involved Mantis' mother hanging out with Ego, and since Ego was kind of known for his banging people and planting tubers in their heads kind of thing, it's safe to assume that he had Mantis in this original version. Or maybe it was Mantis' mother. All we know, it was just a member of Mantis' species that Ego had a fling with. But like, come on, let's think about this for more than 3 seconds. That's probably what it was referencing. This theory hasn't been confirmed or denied, but it adds up. Though, in all fairness, Star-Lord and Mantis are still siblings in the MCU regardless, just not by blood, since Ego basically adopted her, so she's Star-Lord's adopted sister. Or I'm overthinking things. So this is a real quick one that's going to be quickly outdated, but I don't really care. I'm going to point it out anyways. For whatever reason, nobody's talking about how another Disney Plus show got announced. A spin-off series centered on Echo, who will make her first appearance in Hawkeye, will be released. I really don't know why people aren't talking about this. It seems kind of like a major thing, but oh well, I guess not. The MCU is well known for manipulating trailers. For example, a lot of shots in Infinity War's trailers and Endgame's trailers were all fake. Well, let me rephrase that. They were filmed, but used only for these trailers. They were never intended to be in the movie. Like, for example, the shot of Captain America and the rest of the Avengers and Hulk, etc. all running at the camera for Infinity War was never intended to be in the movie. That was just for the trailer. The same thing happened in Endgame with Black Widow in a shooting gallery. There's also been times when trailers have been completely manipulated, as in, like, they edit things out. In order to promote Spider-Man Far From Home's re-release, in September 2019, a Daily Bugle promotional website was launched, which stars J.K. Simmons, J. Jonah Jameson, accusing Spider-Man of being a fraud and a criminal as usual. There's videos, articles, blog posts, etc. It's a really cool promotional campaign that even has YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook pages. Check it out soon, because I don't know how much longer it's going to be up. Who knows, maybe the No Way Home trailer will be on there. I don't know. In Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Steve has a list of all the things he's been told to check out. But what's interesting is the list changes depending on the version of the film you're watching. Oh boy. If you're watching the US or Canada versions, you'll see I Love Lucy, The Moon Landing, Steve Jobs, Star Wars, Star Trek, Rocky, Nirvana, etc. If you're watching the British version or the Irish version, you'll see Sherlock, the 1966 World Cup final, Sean Connery, and the Beatles. If you're watching the South Korean version, you'll see the 2002 World Cup, Dance Dance Revolution, Ji-Sung Park, and Old Boy. If you're watching the Spain version, you'll see Rafa Nadal, the 1978 Constitution, Heroes de Silencio, and Chupa Chups. If you're watching the Central American version, you'll see Naravala, Octavia Paz, Maradona's Hand of God, Shakira, etc. If you're watching the Italian version, you'll see Ferrari's victories at the Grand Prix, the 1982 and 2006 World Cup, and Vasco Rossi. If you're watching the Australian or New Zealand version, you'll see AC/DC, Steve Irwin, Tim Tams, Skippy the Bush Kangaroo, and Space Travel. If you're watching the Russian version, you'll see Moscow Doesn't Believe in Tears, Vladimir Valensky, Yuri Gagarin, and the Soviet Union's dissolution. If you're watching the French version, you'll see Daft Punk, The Fifth Element, Luis Delfuns, and France 98. If you're watching the Brazilian version, you'll see Wagner Moura, Mamonas Assassinas, Ayrton Senna, etc. And if you're watching the German version, you'll see Currywurst and Oktoberfest. Holy fuck, I apologize if I... No, not if I... I apologize for butchering a lot of the names here. I cannot speak.
Is the suit ready for departure? Check. Back with Iron Man in a bit.
I'm Hulk and I will defeat you!
Okay, my turn.
I am the Hulk. I am Abomination.
Oh, I'm the Hulk. I'm so sad. I don't know how to defend myself. My
Right now at Burger King, you can collect all 6 Incredible Hulk toys, 1 per kids meal. Incredible Hulk toys are now at BK.
Witness the fury. Now back to the Incredible Hulk on Disney XD.
Right before Far From Home came out, there were fake leaks going around that Avengers Tower would be shown to be owned by Norman Osborn in the after credits scene, and the Baxter Building would be seen. These were obviously fake. What many people don't know is the Wasp suit seen at the very end of Ant-Man and the Wasp suit featured in Ant-Man and the Wasp are actually completely different suits. I guess she just heavily modified it in between films. In a deleted scene in Incredible Hulk, you can actually see Captain America frozen in the ice. As for Thor, well, some people think you can see Thor in the shot where the Hulk's looking at the lightning. But this is... Come on. That's not true. There are rumors that there was a scrapped plotline in Falcon the Winter Soldier, with rumors saying that the plotline was about a deadly virus, which would not look very good in a post-COVID world. So Disney quickly changed it and scrapped it from the show completely, which is why there's certain scenes in Falcon the Winter Soldier that feel kind of off. However, this has been officially debunked. Well, they could be lying, but the official story is there wasn't any scrapped plotline. Throughout Season 1 of Runaways, we'd actually see Pez dispensers of Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Thor. I guess Tony was just like, sure, you can make toys of us, I don't care. Because I doubt Peter or Thor would be cool with this. There's been a ton of tie-in comics released for the MCU. However, from what I understand, most of the ones that are just preludes to the movies are just brief retelling of scenes. From what I also know, most of these comics aren't that great, or they're just not very popular, because I almost never hear anyone talk about these things. However, some of them do fix up some plot holes. So just one comic where Black Widow shows up almost immediately after the events of Incredible Hulk and beats the shit out of the leader. Now, how canon are these comics? I don't know. I guess they're in a soft canon area where you don't need to read them, but unless they're explicitly retconned in a movie or show, then they're canon to an extent. Oh wait, hey, there's Joffrey the Giraffe, my favorite Avenger. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Slingshot, released in 2016, was a web series that lasted 6 episodes and ties into Captain America Civil War. It takes place roughly in the middle of the Season 4 of the main show, and it's about Yo-Yo Rodriguez being forced to sign the Sokovia Accords because she's an Inhuman with powers. Back in 2017, Mark Ruffalo forgot to end a Facebook Live session with fans right before he went to go see Thor Ragnarok's world premiere. So nearly 2,500 people listened to the first 20 minutes of Thor Ragnarok, before a Disney exec can be heard shouting, "Turn off your phone is on, turn off your phone!" Funny enough, Kevin Feige wasn't actually mad at this. Apparently, when Ruffalo went to apologize to Feige, Feige gave him a bear hug and told him that they got more press from that incident than the entire premiere. So this is one of the strangest things ever created. Right before Infinity War came out, a 416-page Thanos prequel novel was released, and apparently was based a lot on Thanos' scrapped backstory from the film. And it's meant to act as an iteration of the MCU version of Thanos, despite it not being canon. Yes, Thanos Titan Consumed, the Thanos prequel novel that uses the MCU designs and is meant to be the MCU Thanos, is not canon. Not only that, but the official synopsis for the book that was released a month before Infinity War came out spoils the movie. It flat out says the villain that not even the Avengers could defeat. It even says Marvel Studios Avengers Infinity War on the cover. How is this not canon? I could spend all day discussing the hundreds of fake Endgame leaks, but because this video is already long enough, I'll just give you a couple of examples. One of the most major fake leaks was the idea that Thor, Valkyrie, Rocket, and Hulk would travel to Hell to recruit my wife Hela and her army to battle Thanos' army. Another included Hulk training non-stop, which Cap asks him why he's training so hard. To which Hulk responds with, "My rematch is coming real soon. I can feel it." This leak also said that Tony would give Steve a new shield while the Wakandan throne room, and Baku would be the new Black Panther, and the title of the film would be Avengers Annihilation. Oh, and Old Man Tony Stark would be in the film as the new leader of S.H.I.E.L.D., and would have an orange briefcase with him that was implied to be BARF technology. Another major leak was that Tony was going to become Kang the Conqueror, and would be the true villain of Endgame. Boy, that's aged perfectly. And finally, another big leak was that Loki didn't actually die, and was actually Banner in disguise. Marvel created the Cinematic Universe was an art exhibit displayed exclusively at the Queensland Gallery of Modern Art from May to September 2017. The exhibit included 300 plus objects, costumes, drawings, and storyboards to explain the creation of this nearly 30-film franchise. Marvel Future Fight is a mobile game released in 2015 with over 200 playable characters, some of which are the MCU incarnations of certain heroes and villains, like Iron Man, Captain America, Daredevil, Thor, Spider-Man, Falcon, Hawkeye, Thanos, Black Widow, Killmonger, Nebula, the Hulkbuster armor, Vision, Captain Marvel, Scarlet Witch, Hulk, War Machine, Luke Cage, Ultron, Black Panther, Shuri, Wasp, White Vision, Yellow Jacket, Rescue, Ghost Rider, Deathlock, Mockingbird, Red Guardian, etc. Point is, there's a lot of MCU characters in this game. And there's been entire events themed around recent MCU releases, like Endgame, Falcon the Winter Soldier, Black Widow, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 3, etc. The Wakanda Files is an in-universe lore book released in 2020. It's a collection of papers, articles, blueprints, and notes about the history of Wakanda at the request of Shuri. It also covers a ton of the technological advancements made throughout the MCU. I don't really know when this book was written in universe, maybe before this and that, maybe after, but what I do know is that the Wakanda Files actually references several of the MCU shows, which some people argue aren't canon. For example, the Helicarrier from Age of Ultron is said to be the one from Avengers 1, which was a detail exclusively mentioned in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And Anton Vanko is shown as he appeared in Agent Carter. Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout is a drop tower dark ride in Disney California Adventure Park. It has you help Rocket free the rest of the Guardians in the Collector's Fortress, and has a majority of the cast reprise their roles, except for Vin Diesel. I guess family has its limits. Also, James Gunn directed all the scenes of the cast, so it's almost like it's a Guardians film, except it's not, it's a ride. Now, I know what you're going to say next. So why is this entry called The Death of Tower of Terror? Well, it's because it replaced the Tower of Terror in California Adventure Park, which brought a lot of backlash from fans, since the Tower of Terror is such an iconic ride. Though the ones in Disney's Hollywood Studios and Walt Disney Studios Park are still open. During the iconic slaughter of Taserface's crew in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, a variation of the song Come a Little Bit Closer is played as Yondu, Rocket, and Groot slaughter everyone. However, this version, while pieced together online, has never been officially released in any form. The ones online do good enough jobs, but you can still hear Yondu's whistling, and the arrow hitting people, and Rocket's guns, so the full uncut version is still lost. It must be some kind of legal issue, because I don't see why else they wouldn't release this version of the song. Quite frankly, unpopular opinion here, but I actually prefer this version. It's fucking fantastic. Despite Agent Carter being a really big hit, in terms of reception, not many actually watched it, which is a shame because Agent Carter was a pretty solid show. A third season was planned that would deal with Carter's brother Michael being up to some supervillain shenanigans, and the third season would be about the aftermath of the assassination attempt on Thompson. Sadly, the season would never be made as ABC canceled it right after its second season aired. Apparently, another reason why the show never got its third season was that ABC wanted Haley Atwell to move over to ABC's new show, Conviction, to get their ratings up instead of staying on Agent Carter, which they described as a cult-following show. Let's see what Conviction's up to. Oh, okay. Glad you moved over to that. Sadly, a third season doesn't ever seem like it will happen, as several people involved in the show know about the dedicated fan base petition for its return, but they've all said the same thing, that they don't think there's enough support to justify the cost of reviving it. In WandaVision, Monica briefly mentions how she has an aerospace engineer friend that can help them out. Everyone, for whatever reason, thought she was talking about Reed Richards, despite WandaVision being written before Disney bought Fox. I really don't know why people thought Mr. Fantastic would show up in this show. It was even confirmed that the aerospace engineer line was never meant to tease any character. It was just a throwaway line. When Skrulls were first revealed to be in Captain Marvel, everyone went crazy online. People began speculating that War Machine was a Skrull, Bucky was a Skrull, Sharon Carter was a Skrull, Iron Man was a Skrull, Nick Fury was a Skrull. Well, I guess he wasn't from home. But look, the point is that it became the new trend of accusing random MCU characters of being Skrulls. But none of these theories came true, as Skrulls are good guys. Or at least they were in Captain Marvel. I'm sure they're going to do some bad shit in Secret Invasion. Throughout the first two seasons of Daredevil in Melvin Potter's workshop, you can see Gladiator's logo. This is a reference to Melvin's comic counterpart, Gladiator. But what's more interesting, in my opinion, is how you can actually see Stiltman's armor being built. In Season 1, we just see the legs, but in Season 2, we see that the armor's been upgraded, which means that Melvin's working on it casually. So that means that some dude hired him to make it. I can only hope that Stiltman shows up in the MCU in full. Where would he appear? I have no idea. Maybe She-Hulk? I mean, She-Hulk's going for a lighter tone. Stiltman's kind of a comedic villain. Could work. Avengers Endgame is originally titled Avengers Infinity Gauntlet, as a reference to the comic. The name was changed because Zoe Saldana kind of flat out leaked the title in which she said she's going back to film Gauntlet, not Infinity War. Though James Gunn denied that this was the title. Maybe Infinity Gauntlet was just a working name? One of the original films planned out in the very beginning of the MCU was a film centered around Hawkeye. However, this film was put on the back burner for years, until eventually the project was just scrapped altogether and the film was morphed into the Disney Plus series beginning later this year. Though the show will follow a completely different storyline than whatever the movie's plotline was going to be. So in Meek's appearances in Thor Ragnarok and Avengers Endgame, everyone assumed Meek was a dude since Korg flat out calls Meek a guy. Now, Meek might still be a dude, but recently it was revealed that Meek will be sporting a new feminine body in Love and Thunder, and will be wearing a skirt, which has led some people to believe that Meek's gender is being retconned. I'm pretty sure that Meek is still a dude though, and it'll just be explained that he likes to wear that kind of stuff, but who knows. Carol Danvers was actually going to debut in the MCU way before her own film. You see, originally Captain Marvel was going to appear at the very end of Age of Ultron with the rest of the new Avengers, but she was removed as it was deemed inappropriate to introduce her without establishing her backstory, which I completely agree with. Also, side note, both Spider-Man and Quicksilver were intended to be in this scene too. The latter even had a comic-accurate design, and was filmed in case Disney wanted to keep him alive. Anyways, her next almost appearance was in Jessica Jones. You see, originally Jessica Jones was going to air on ABC, and Carol Danvers is going to be a main character in it, but eventually that role was reworked into Trish Walker's role. A lot of people like to debate why Thanos waited so long to get the stones. Some have theorized that Thanos waited all these years because he was afraid of Odin in Asgard. It explained why he began hunting for the stones himself at the end of Age of Ultron, as Loki had banished Odin just before in Dark World. Though some have also theorized that Odin was Thanos' rival, meaning that Odin wanted the stones for himself, and he didn't know the gauntlet in his treasury was a fake. I mean, why would he have a prop in his treasure room? Neither theory has been confirmed, but they're both pretty interesting nonetheless. There was a very popular fan theory that Loki survived the events of Infinity War by using an illusion to attack Thanos and fake his death. This turned out to be untrue, but this fan theory did inspire classic Loki's backstory in Loki Season 1, as the fan theory is quite literally just his backstory. In promotion for the movie Free Guy, Deadpool did a reaction video to the trailer with Korg. This is technically the first time Deadpool's ever crossed over with the MCU prior to his eventual MCU film. Because of the logo created for the video and the amount of money and effort put into this video, I think it's safe to say we'll get more Deadpool reaction videos with or without more MCU characters. Beta Ray Bill was originally going to be a major character in Thor Ragnarok, and later a cameo, as explained earlier, but was eventually scrapped. But he still actually appears in Thor Ragnarok as a statue, which makes him canon to the MCU. Will he finally make his full appearance in Thor Love and Thunder? We'll have to wait and see, but as of right now, don't worry, he's canon. Side note though, his species, the Corbinites, are actually the species that Nebula and Gamora are fighting in the alternate timeline in Endgame. Originally, Lady Sif was intended to be in Thor Ragnarok, along with the rest of the first two Thor films as Guardian characters. However, due to scheduling conflicts, she was written on the film. Now, we don't know if she would actually die in the film, but, I mean, let's be real here. What are the chances of her surviving when pretty much every single Asgardian named character, except for Heimdall, dies in this movie? Well, I mean, except for, like, Thor, Loki, and Valkyrie, but you get what I mean. Watch the Game was a promotional short film released in parts during commercial breaks for Spider-Man Homecoming and the 2017 NBA Finals. In this, Spider-Man is invited by Tony Stark to the NBA Finals party he's hosting, and is tasked to get snacks for it by Happy Hogan. While doing so, he stops a robbery, meets DJ Khaled, and eventually gets to the party, where it's revealed that Tony Stark's not actually even there. He's at the actual game itself. Nelson and Murdoch Attorneys at Law is a promotional bench placed near New York Comic Con in 2015 that promoted the law office of Nelson and Murdoch from Daredevil. There were also posters with tear-off strips and business cards that had a website URL on them that led to the Nelson and Murdoch websites where you could download artwork from Daredevil. Jarvis' second screen experience is a promotional app released for Iron Man 3 based on Jarvis. You could have Jarvis give you reminders or set alarms. You can look at the weather or the dates through the app and make direct posts to Facebook with it. There was also a secret function that allowed users to scan hidden codes in Iron Man 3's Blu-ray to unlock several features, like looking at the entire Iron Legion with a bunch of information about each armor, which is by far the standout feature of the app. Because the MCU is so successful, Marvel comics and games have been severely influenced by them. For example, Iron Man now looks like Robert Downey Jr., Star-Lord's design has been greatly redesigned to look more like the movies, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were retconned to not being mutants anymore, which I think is extremely stupid, but whatever. Oh yeah, do you guys remember the Ultimate comics where Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were fucking... Fantastic Four comic was just flat out cancelled because Marvel didn't own the rights to the movies, and the characters took a back seat for quite some time. The comics had begun to focus more on Thanos and Gamora's relationship. Loki in the comics basically acts identical to Tom Hiddleston's Loki, and he looks like him. And the X-Men and Fantastic Four characters were dropped from Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite because they weren't in the MCU. Also, I'm just speculating here, but because Ms. Marvel and Kate Bishop are making their MCU debuts pretty soon, I think it's kind of interesting that Kate Bishop and Ms. Marvel are two prominent characters in the recently released Avengers game. I don't know, maybe this is getting audiences ready for the characters or not. I don't know. I Want Your Cray Cray was a song created promotion for the second season of Jessica Jones. It's an in-universe song created by Trish Walker and is prominently used in the episode, aka I Want Your Cray Cray. And before you go, wow, this song is awful, that's kind of the point. The Living Tribunal is an extremely powerful character in Marvel Comics, who has existed as long as the universe itself. It exists as a way to safeguard the multiverse and is known for exacting brutal judgments. Aside from Loki, which I mentioned earlier, the Living Tribunal has been referenced before in Doctor Strange, as Mordo has a bit of its power stuck inside the staff of the Living Tribunal. But the more interesting fact here is that an entire sequence was cut from Infinity War, in which Doctor Strange would have sent Thanos to the Living Tribunal in order to judge him for his crimes. According to Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, we wrote a scene in which he appeared during the Titan fight, and everyone was like, what? He's got 3 heads, and it would indicate a whole different level of architecture to the universe, and I think that was just too much to throw in.
Take your dirty dishes to the kitchen. See you in a few.
Powerful alone, unstoppable together. Avengers! Assemble! Iron Man jets in with a repulsor blast. Captain America goes to shield far and fast. Thor's hammer makes thunder and lightning crash. And the whole kit's hard with a big hole smash. Teaming up to save the world in the ultimate fight. Earth's mightiest heroes gonna make it right. Powerful alone, unstoppable together.
With all new Avengers Arsenal gear, you can join Earth's mightiest heroes. Each sold separately, batteries not included.
Avengers, assemble!
We're back to the heavy metal hero himself, Iron Man, right here in the Vortex.
In the Incredible Hulk novelization, Amanda Cho is seen. He's a student that Banner gives pizza to while he tries to sneak into the lab. He later sends Banner a joke text to scare him into thinking Ross found him. Comic fans will know that Amanda Cho is totally awesome Hulk, or by his actual superhero name, Brawn. So if Brawn ever makes his MCU debut, which he probably will, I mean they have Ironheart in the MCU now, so why not him too, just know that his original debut was in a book from 2008. In the second episode of WandaVision, eagle-eyed viewers can spot this helmet in the opening title sequence. This is the helmet of Grim Reaper, a villain from Marvel Comics, who's battled Scarlet Witch several times in the past. This led to people thinking that Grim Reaper might be the secret villain of WandaVision, or at least be in the show. But it turns out this was nothing more than an Easter egg. WHIH Newsfront was a web series that was used as a viral marketing campaign for Ant-Man and Captain America Civil War. It's a series of clips from an in-universe news show called WHIH World News, which has been seen in a ton of MCU projects, from Incredible Hulk, Black Widow, Daredevil, Inhumans, WandaVision, Punisher, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, Iron Man 2, Runaways, etc. It's everywhere. The show gives us an in-universe look as to how the world views the events of the first 2 MCU phases, and even has an interview with Scott Lang, with Paul Rudd reprising the role. In the year 2000, there were plans to bring the kids' superhero team Power Pack to life in a live-action film, but it was put on hold for 17 years, until in 2017 when Marvel Studios announced that it plans to introduce the Power Pack into the MCU with their own film. However, it's been nearly 4 years since the announcement, and there's been not a single update outside of the statement it'll have a Spy Kids-like story. Who knows, maybe it'll get turned into a Disney Plus series, or just be flat out cancelled if it hasn't been already. Tiffany Epsinson plays the character Cindy Moon in Spider-Man Homecoming and Avengers Infinity War. She's a pretty minor character that doesn't really do too much in the films at all. In fact, her most notable role so far has been the fact that she survived the snap, which explains her absence in Far From Home. Comic fans will know that Cindy Moon is the real name of Silk. It's unknown if she's going to become Silk in a film down the line, or if her name is just an Easter egg for the comic fans. But regardless, Silk is in the MCU. Earlier this year in May, Dave Bautista said that James Gunn had actually pitched a Drax and Mantis solo film, or I guess duo film, to Marvel. According to Bautista, James Gunn said he really wanted to do it, and that there were actual talks going on. However, the 3 of them never heard anything back from Marvel, which most likely means it won't happen. Honestly, would have loved for this to happen. I adore Drax and Mantis' relationship. Avengers Damage Control is a very strange VR game released in 2019 that takes place in the MCU. but it's not actually canon. The game has you play as one of 4 new recruits to test out a new Iron Man-like suit that combines technology from Wakanda and Stark Industries, when suddenly Ultron shows up, somehow alive.
Oh, for God's sake.
The game seems to take place after Endgame, as both Iron Man and Captain America aren't present. Instead, you fight alongside Ant-Man, Wasp, Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel, Spider-Man, Hulk, Falcon, War Machine, Black Panther, Shuri, Thor, Hawkeye, OKA, and Korg for whatever reason. The game actually has Evangeline Lilly, Paul Rudd, Letitia Wright, and Benedict Cumberbatch reprise their roles. And like I mentioned, it's not canon, though the creators of the game said they wanted it to be authentically Marvel Studios, whatever that means. There were a bunch of scenes from Endgame that were scrapped before filming that would have completely changed the film. Some of these scenes include one where Captain America goes to Vormir and meets up with Red Skull to get the Soul Stone, Thor and Rocket battle a Midgard serpent, Thanos from Infinity War isn't killed, the Thanos from 2014 kills all the Avengers in 2014, and when he confronts the Avengers during the Battle of Earth, he holds up the severed head of Captain America and asks the Avengers, "I killed you. What do you want to do now?" Scarlet Witch survives the snap and goes on a road trip with Rocket to find an Infinity Stone, and when Hulk does the snap, he visits the Soul World, where Hulk and Bruce Banner would interact with each other. In 2017, there were talks between Kevin Feige and Taika Waititi to produce a Korg and Meek one-shot. However, it's been 4 years since those talks, so the one-shot was more than likely scrapped. However, it's one of the few scrapped one-shots that got past just the pitch. Originally, Mysterio's design in Far From Home was a lot less faithful to the comics. His original armor was that of a modified Hulkbuster-like suit that kinda looks like a repaint of that one Iron Man 2 underwater armor figure. That was really specific. There's like 3 people on Earth that are gonna get that. There's a fan theory that Eitri, after the events of Infinity War, killed himself. Or he was snapped. But let's go with the theory that he survived the snap. Think about it. The dude is the last of his kind, or at least the last person alive in Avler, and he was forced to create the gauntlet that created the snap, that wiped out trillions, and created the weapon that failed to prevent the snap. Knowing he failed the universe and is kind of responsible in a way, there's a good chance he may have killed himself. If you watch Falcon and Winter Soldier, you probably were confused as to why Spider-Man didn't show up in the finale. They weren't building up to him or anything, but the final battle takes place in New York City, so it's strange that Spider-Man just kind of ignored it. I guess in universe he saw the Falcon, now Captain America, Bucky and US Agent run the scene, so he'd be overkill. Now Spider-Man was actually intended to be in the finale. The credits of the show wanted him to show up, but Feige convinced them to scrap him. And by convince, he probably just went, "Guys, do you know how much this would take to negotiate this over with Sony? It's not worth it." Marvel 1602 is exactly what it sounds like. What if the Marvel heroes and villains were born in the 15th to 16th century? It ran for 8 issues and a couple of sequels. I talk about more in my Spider-Man Iceberg, so if you're interested, go check that out. Anyways, the creator of this universe, Neil Gaiman, revealed in 2019 that he had actually pitched a 1602 adaptation to Marvel TV, but was rejected. Later that same year, Kevin Feige revealed he was actually interested in a Marvel 1602 and an Earth X series or films, but they had to have a built-in audience for it. Earth X being a comic run about a dystopian version of the Marvel Universe, after the entire world's population became mutated. My best guess is we'll actually see either of these universes in What If Season 2, or their own animated series. There's no way they're going to do a live-action film or show about these. So Yellow Jacket died at the end of Ant-Man 1, right? Well, director Peyton Reed has hinted that he could still be alive. In 2015 he said, "Well, I mean, you guys are making a massive assumption. There's an assumption here that I'm not quite comfortable with. If you watch his death in the first Ant-Man, the suit is compromised. He shrinks and goes into a thing. I mean, he could be somewhere down there in the quantum realm. So could we see him in Ant-Man 3? It's very possible." There's a theory that the Incredible Hulk isn't actually canon to the MCU. Or at least, it's canon, but not in the way you think. The theory goes that the events of the Incredible Hulk do happen in the mainline Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline, but the version we see in the film actually takes place in another timeline, possibly the one we see in Endgame. Now personally, I think this is a rather silly theory because it only exists to explain the change of actors. But hey, if you believe in it, I won't and can't stop you. The Doctor Doom origin film was in development at 21st Century Fox in the later 2010s, with Noah Hawley set to direct, and by August 2019, the script was 100% completed. But then Disney bought Fox, and in October, Noah Hawley revealed that the film was in limbo, due to Doom's eventual appearance in the MCU. According to Hawley, the film would have been a political thriller and a quote-unquote kind of a Cold War geopolitical movie, and would lead to Doctor Doom being the dictator of Latveria. According to rumors, Hawley also approached Feige about having the film in the MCU, to which he was declined. It's unknown if that part is actually true, but what we do know is this film isn't happening. There's a theory that Red Guardian is actually telling the truth about fighting Captain America. Just not Steve Rogers. You see, in the comics after World War II, Captain America started going after communists, which led to lower readership. In order to retcon these events, Marvel revealed that Steve Rogers was actually frozen during this time, and that the Captain America that readers had been following for a while was actually a man named William Burnside, who had gotten plastic surgery to look identical to Steve Rogers. So think about it. Red Guardian claims to have fought Captain America. Burnside's Captain America pretty much exclusively went after communists and Soviets. Then you might wonder, but how would Red Guardian recognize Captain America, since Burnside and Rogers are different people? If he saw Rogers in the news, he'd realize they're different people. Well, just like in the comics, Burnside got plastic surgery to look like Captain America. This theory makes way too much sense. It has to be legit. And before you go, they can't just retcon that. There's only one Captain America in the MCU, until Walker and then Sam. Well, guess what? They already did a similar retcon with Isaiah, so it wouldn't be much of a stretch to do another retcon and be like, yep, they brought back the super soldier stuff in the 80s or 90s or whatever. So in the MCU, the president of the United States around the time of Phase 2 was a guy named Matthew Ellis. So he was president in Iron Man 3, which takes place in 2012. So Obama was then president, right? Well, in Captain America the Winter Soldier, you can actually see an Obama biography, and he's directly referenced in Luke Cage and Runaways, the latter of which directly references the Obama administration. So, what gives? Who was president? Well, this one Reddit post from Probot clears the whole thing up. In the MCU, the president is decided every 2 years instead of every 4 years, which means that Obama won in 2008 and lost in 2010 to Matthew Ellis. There's a fan theory that the MCU's Doctor Strange actually traveled to the Raimi Trilogy's universe at some point, because Jonah mentions him in Spider-Man 2. Now, obviously, this was just an Easter egg at the time, but who knows? Maybe the theory will be confirmed in No Way Home, or Multiverse of Madness. I mean, the latter of which is being directed by Sam Raimi, so it could happen. There were 2 attempts at an MCU film centered around Nick Fury. The first was a script written by Andrew W. Marlowe, and was based on Jim Steranko's Nick Fury Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series. This script was being made in 2006, and wasn't originally intended to be an MCU film, but Marlowe stated that the script could easily have been tweaked for Sam Jackson's portrayal of the character. Then, a Nick Fury film was originally intended to be the MCU, once it was starting up in Phase 1. This film would have been basically Captain America the Winter Soldier Light. You see, originally a Nick Fury film was in the cards at one point before being scrapped, and rumor has it that pretty much all the ideas for it were folded into Winter Soldier. In 2015, Peyton Reed proposed a prequel film based on Hank Pym's time being Ant-Man, an idea that in 2018, Michael Douglas announced that he was pretty supportive of. Though it's been 6 years since the initial pitch and nothing has happened, so chances are this isn't going to happen. There's a theory that Hulk was actually able to bring back Black Widow following his snap at Endgame. However, because Black Widow's body is in another timeline, so if she was brought back to life, she'd be stuck on an alternate universe Vormir with no food or water, I guess she wouldn't be alive again for very long. There's a theory that one of the many reporters surrounding Tony Stark in Iron Man 3 was from the Daily Bugle, or the person that Tony broke the phone of went on to create the Daily Bugle after the video went viral. There really isn't anything backing this theory, but a lot of people believe it. There were a ton of cancelled MCU TV shows that were originally going to air on ABC. However, the shows I'm about to mention never got proper announcements outside of the fact that they were happening, so we don't really know what they would have been about. The first cancelled show would have been written by John Ridley. All we know about this project is that it would have incorporated the socially conscious nature of Jessica Jones and American crime, but it fizzled out in 2017. Then there was the Alan Heinberg series announced in 2018 that would have been about lesser-known female superheroes. The production for this show didn't last too long as the pilot was scrapped in February 2019, not even in a year after its announcement. In 2016, Paul Lee announced that a second comedy ABC MCU series was being developed after Damage Control. But that's all we know. Seriously, there was never even a follow-up to this announcement. It just kind of disappeared. And finally, there was a show that focused on female superheroes that was unrelated to Alan Heinberg's show. This show was rumored to be about A-Force, but I mean, how? I doubt they had the money to get all the female heroes from the movies on ABC. In Season 1 of Daredevil, an unnamed ESU sniper appears in the 6th episode where he kills Christian Blake. This sniper's face is hidden and he's played by Samuel Glenn. But what's interesting here is you can actually see a playing card in his bag. Many people begin to theorize that this was actually Bullseye, as Bullseye uses playing cards all the time as weapons. But when Bullseye was introduced in Season 3, the theory kind of fell apart, as Bullseye was never part of the ESU in the MCU. Though he was part of the FBI. I mean, I guess you can say he was undercover or something like that, but I think it's fair to say that this was just an Easter egg. In the final episode of Loki Season 1, Kang is killed and the multiverse is unleashed. We then see all the branching timelines begin to split off. This has led some people to theorize that because this is the birth of the multiverse, then this is by extension the birth of the Raimi trilogy and Tassiverse timelines, along with Ang Lee's Hulk, the Ghost Rider duology, Fox's X-Men series, the Fantastic Four duology, the 2003 Daredevil duology, and the Punisher 2004 universe. That famous after credits scene where Nick Fury approaches Tony Stark at the end of Iron Man and tells him that he's not the only superhero in the world. I actually had a different take that wasn't released up until a couple years ago. In this version, Nick Fury reveals how Tony's part of a bigger universe, in which there are gamma accidents, radioactive bug bites, and an assortment of mutants. This obviously is referring to Hulk, Spider-Man, and the X-Men. Weird to think that originally the Fox X-Men series and Raimi's Spider-Man trilogies were intended to be in the MCU. To help promote Iron Fist Season 1, Netflix created a commercial which featured ESPN anchor Stan Verretts watching the show, before bumping into UFC champion Conor McGregor, and then proceeds to challenge him to a fight. The fight is on, but Verrett sends McGregor a threatening video of him later that day of him summoning the Iron Fist and punching through a wall, which causes McGregor to call off the fight. But it was then revealed to all be a dream. The one time a dream theory was actually correct. According to Jessica Henwick, Colin Wing's actress, there were light discussions for a Daughters of the Dragon series that was intended to be the second Netflix series' spin-off show, the first being Punisher, technically. The show would be about the comic duo Daughters of the Dragon, which consists of Colleen Wing from Iron Fist and Misty Knight from Luke Cage. The two actually even teamed up in the second season of Luke Cage, which was very clearly a backdoor pilot for the show. However, the show never came to be, even with Jessica Henwick being very vocal about creating it. In 2008, it was announced that Marvel Studios was creating a film based on The Runaways, with Drew Pearce hired to write the film and Peter Sellett to direct in 2010. But then in October of that year, Marvel announced that they were holding back on the film in favor of the Avengers. And in 2014, it was revealed that the Runaways film was in serious danger of being scrapped, with Kevin Feige saying they can't make all the projects they want. Thankfully for Runaway fans, in 2016 it was revealed that it would be a series on Hulu instead of a movie, and premiered in 2017, getting 3 seasons. That's almost like getting a Runaways trilogy of films, in a way. Side note, I love how in the MCU there's just like a big raptor that no one ever talks about. I just think it's really funny. In 2019, there was a leak that revealed a ton of MCU Disney Plus shows, and one of the shows included in that leak was a show about Lady Sif. Now, everyone thought this leak was fake at first, but one by one, the leaked shows were revealed to be real. WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Ironheart, Miss Marvel, Nick Fury, War Machine, etc. So the question now is this Lady Sif show still happening? Was it scrapped in favor of her being in Thor 4? I guess we'll have to wait and see. The only plot details about the Lady Sif show that were in the initial leak, it would take place before Thor Ragnarok and have Beta Ray Bill be a main character. Revealed literally just days before this video goes live, James Gunn revealed that he had apparently pitched a Ravagers spin-off show to Disney+. Apparently Feige told him that if Guardians 1 was a hit, he could do anything. That apparently was a lie because it's been 7 years now and no Ravager show. Look, I don't care if it's a new Ravager group, or Stallone's original Guardians crew at the very end of Guardians 2, with like Stallone and Miley Cyrus and whatever. I would absolutely love for this to happen. We need a Disney Plus series that focuses on the cosmic side of Marvel. This was originally going to be in Tier 1, but I forgot about it until the last second, and I really don't feel like going back to edit Tier 1, so here we are. In Iron Man 1, you can see Captain America's shield being built. Obviously, this isn't his actual shield, it's just a prototype or something, a replica maybe. It's even shown to a greater extent in Iron Man 2. Originally, I thought this was the shield that Tony gives Cap in Endgame, but I'm stupid. That's just the shield at the end of Civil War that Tony kept. I'm kind of an idiot. Okay, so hear me out. In Captain Marvel, the Watcher informant, played by Stan Lee, is seen reading a script for the movie Mallrats, a film that Stan Lee appears in. So, Stan Lee himself exists in the MCU, as he's reading the script to a film he's going to appear in, but only as a Watcher informant. So Stan Lee plays a Watcher informant that also goes by the name of Stan Lee, meaning that Stan Lee in the actual Marvel Universe is just a Watcher informant. Does that make any sense? Is that confusing? Probably both. In Iron Man 2, you can see two dots on Nick Fury's computer in the background. One is right where Wakanda is, and one is in the middle of the ocean, obviously referring to Atlantis. This means that Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. have known about Atlantis for quite some time. Zolo is actually going to be revealed to have survived Winter Soldier, and Ant-Man would have been revealed that he downloaded a copy of his artificial intelligence into an android body. His appearance was scrapped, however his role in the story was most likely just replaced with that one HYDRA agent shown in the movie. Side note, in Captain America the First Avenger, you can actually see blueprints for Zola's robot body that looks much more like his comic counterpart. First appearing in Avengers issue 162 in 1977, Jocasta is a robot built by Ultron so that he could have a wife. That's not a joke, Ultron was very horny at one point. Anyway, she was built off the personality and mental residue of the Wasp, but eventually became a hero. And she's actually getting into the MCU. Kinda. In Age of Ultron, after uploading Jarvis into Vision, Tony looks for a replacement AI. After some debate, he chooses Friday, while the other AIs, I guess, just rot or something. I don't know what happens to them. Anyways, one of those AIs was actually named Jocasta. Will she ever appear in the MCU? Maybe? I don't know. I feel like if they had plans for her, they would have kept Ultron around. So this one's kind of a stretch, but people believe it, so I'll include it. In the first Iron Man film, Obadiah Stane is shown owning a chess set. Now, I just think this is part of the background, but people claim it's actually an Easter egg reference to the Chessmen, a group of assassins created by Stane in the comics in order to kill Tony Stark. These assassins each represented a chess piece and were outfitted in the garb and accessories associated with their respective ranks. So you had like a bishop, a knight, etc. Maybe it's a reference to them? I don't know. I do hope the chessmen show up in the MCU at some point though, with their comic accurate designs, because these are just these are just great. So there's a theory that the next Avengers film won't actually be about the Avengers, but instead the Young Avengers. People point to the fact that the MCU is introducing a ton of young heroes in Phase 4, like Miss Marvel, Kate Bishop, Ironheart, Eli Bradley, Speed, Wiccan, Kid Loki, and America Chavez, and evidence that they're doing Young Avengers. Along with the fact that Cassie Lang is being recasted again, so she's a bit older, so maybe she'll take up her role as Stature or Stinger in the comics. Also, now that Kang will be in Ant-Man 3, maybe we'll see Iron Lad, since that's a variant of Kang and the founding member of Young Avengers, and the love interest of Cassie Lang, so who knows? Chances are these theories are probably true. Let's be real here. So in order to include Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch in the Age of Ultron, Marvel and Fox had to play ball. During this deal, Marvel traded Negasonic Teenage Warhead for Ego the Living Planet. But that's not important right now. The important part is that the deal was that both studios can use both of these characters, with the condition that they could not make references to the other studio's properties. For example, Marvel can't mention how Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are mutants, while Fox can't mention them being Avengers. That was just one of the two Quicksilver situations, however. Years later, Evan Peters appeared in WandaVision as Quicksilver. This led to many people to speculate that this was the Fox version of Quicksilver appearing in the MCU. I mean, the show's subtitles even labeled him as Fox Quicksilver, but then it was revealed that it wasn't him, despite the clear references to him being the Fox Quicksilver, and that he's actually just a dude named Ralph Boner that Agatha gave the powers of Quicksilver to. This angered a lot of people. In Avengers Infinity War, you can see what looks like red blood where Gamora's body is lying on Vormir. This has led people to speculate one of three things. One is that the blood is from someone else's attempt to gain the Soul Stone, however they didn't love the person enough so they didn't get it. Imagine being sacrificed for the Soul Stone, but it doesn't even work. The second theory is that it's Hela's mother's blood. This theory states that Odin attempted to get the stones at some point, and sacrificed Hela's mother to get it. And the final theory is that it's Black Widow's blood, since she died there too, but in another timeline, so that wouldn't be hers. On July 15th, 2021, Olivia Richards confirmed on Instagram that the character he plays in Black Widow is Ursa Major from the comics. You know, the giant bear mutant. And yes, I said mutant. He claims that Ursa Major is the MCU's first ever mutant. Now, is this actually true, or is he just claiming this? Well, I mean, it doesn't hurt that he's the first MCU mutant. And if you read the post, you can tell he's really passionate about this, so why not believe he's the first mutant? Now, on Marvel's word, the whole situation, they have yet to comment on it. So in the comics, there's only one TVA that watches over all the multiverse. And since the MCU has been given their own official Marvel Multiverse number, this has led some people to speculate that the TVA in Loki is the same TVA from the comics, meaning that this isn't an adaptation of the TVA from the comics. This is the TVA from the comics. This is because if the MCU is part of the larger Marvel Multiverse, there can't really be two TVAs. Personally, I just don't consider the MCU to be part of the larger Marvel comic multiverse, so this whole situation doesn't even really bother me.
Stain has no idea what he's in for. Stay in the vortex.
Oh man, if I can get into that suit right now.
No, it's just a movie, right?
I know.
Iron Man ability, LG ingenuity, together in every LG phone.
It's his.
And we're back. Let's see if Stain's ready for what's coming.
Hello, my name is Analyst61652, and I'm here to update you on some variant timelines that needed pruning. There was a timeline disruption at the beginning of time. It's unknown who did it, but since there is a completely different universe now, filled with Kryptonians, clowns, giant starfish, men dressed in bat costumes, and magical wizards, it needs to be pruned as it delves far, far away from the sacred timeline. There's a timeline where Tony Stark ends up becoming an entity known as Kang the Conqueror after the death of the Avengers during the snap. It's unknown who this Kang is, but he must be pruned. In this timeline, every Avenger, Asgardian, Guardian of the Galaxy, etc. are Skrulls. They're taking over the universe as we speak, so this universe should be number one on your list of pruning. In this timeline, Captain Marvel was tricked by the Skrulls into thinking they're innocent. Turns out they weren't, and Carol Danvers had to prove herself worthy of the Kree Empire once again, to make up for her failure. She's since become a warlord of the Kree Empire, one of the most respectable but brutal figures in all of the galaxy. Timeline disruption has been located at the end of time. Somebody has activated something called the Universal Heat Death, which is ending all of the universe. We must send all of our Minutemen in there to find out who did it and to prune that universe. There's a timeline in which a man going by the name of Pigpen is creating an Iceberg image and video based on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is a film franchise based on the Sacred Timeline. Don't worry, go deal with the Captain Marvel universe or the DCU one for one now. This timeline is already in the process of being pruned. Alright, the MCU Iceberg is complete. About time, right? Yeah, I don't know why this took so long. It's not nearly as long as, even the Transformers Iceberg, or Star Wars Iceberg for that matter. But yeah, I really enjoyed making this. I hope you enjoyed watching it. The TVA thing at the end is a little silly, but so is all the end, the last tiers, the icebergs. As for the next video, it will either be Mini Iceberg or the Halo Iceberg. The thing is, the Mini Iceberg is that the topic I want to do, well, I don't want to say it because I don't want to spoil it, but I thought about doing it for the Mini Iceberg, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, nah, I could probably stretch this to like an hour at tops. It could be its own video. It doesn't. Oh, its own video. Its own big iceberg. It doesn't have to be a small one. But we'll see what happens. Other topics that I am going to cover in the future include like Gears of War, the Fate franchise, Steins Gate, along with like Robotic Notes by extension. I don't like any the other science adventure series outside of Steins Gate and Robotic Notes, so I'm not going to cover them. Sorry for the Chaos Head fans. Sorry. Also, another Transformers Iceberg will happen at some point. probably after the Halo Iceberg. It won't be nearly as long as the first one, but I thought I'd, come back and finish the franchise off because I missed some things. And some people pointed out in the comments, and I'll try to credit those people who pointed them out in the comments below. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and get ready for like 90% of this Iceberg to be outdated within like 2 years because, I mean, What If comes out literally any day now. Shang-Chi comes out September 3rd. As of right now, it is. It could be delayed because of COVID, the Delta variant. Most of these are, a lot of these are theories, and they might get confirmed or denied, debunked. So who knows? I don't know why I'm continuing this. There's a huge drop-off point at the outro section, so nobody actually listens to this. So if you did listen to this, type in the comments, I don't know, Iron Man is pretty cool. Very, very controversial take there. Until next time, have a good one.